Welcome, everyone, to our deep dive into the world of the Sandman. We'll be exploring a theme that, well, I think touches us all, really, and that's loneliness and that human yearning for connection.
Yeah.
You know, the Sandman, for anyone who hasn't encountered it yet, it's a graphic novel series. So we're talking visually stunning storytelling here, and the scope, it's huge.
Yeah.
Spans centuries, actually.
Yeah, and I think what's so captivating about The Sandman is how it blends these like fantastical elements with these really deeply personal stories.
Exactly. It could sound, well, a bit out there, and it is fantastical, but you see how these stories about dreams and nightmares, they actually reflect our own very real, desires and fears.
Right. And we encounter all these different characters too, some human, some, well, cosmic. But they grapple with this idea of connection in ways that just, I don't know, they resonate, Like you see yourself in them.
It really makes you think. And one thing the Sandman definitely doesn't shy away from is, well, those difficult emotions. Like when we feel isolated or misunderstood, it actually goes right into those vulnerabilities, starting with, well, I guess you could say our main character, Morpheus.
Right.
He's also known as Dream, the Sandman, even Lord Shaper sometimes. But he's basically the ruler of the dream realm, so, talk about power, right?
Yeah. Ultimate power.
But it's fascinating because you start to see how all that power, it actually becomes a barrier to forming real, genuine connections.
You see that play out, especially with Morpheus and Nada, their story.
Well, it's definitely tragic, and it's such a powerful example of how pride and fear, even someone with that much power can sabotage even the deepest love because of it, which I think reflects a lot of our own anxieties about being vulnerable, right?
It does. Makes you wonder if even someone like Morpheus, who literally controls the world of dreams, if he struggles with loneliness, what does that say about us?
But, the Sandman isn't just focused on these, powerful beings and their struggles. It introduces us to a whole cast of characters, like Hobgadling. Now he's a human who chooses to become immortal, and it's fascinating to see how he experiences both, well, he sees the joys and the sorrows of living for centuries.
Yeah, Hob's story is like this exploration of, well, it's almost a paradox, right? The paradox of time. He gets this, you could call it a blessing, this endless life, but then he has to watch everyone he loves age and die. And what's so interesting is that experience, it taps into a fear I think we all have, that fear of loss.
Absolutely. It really makes you think about what you would do in that situation. But amidst all that potential for loneliness, he ends up forming this, well, it's an unlikely bond, really, with Morpheus.
Yeah.
They meet like once a century, and they just share stories and experiences. And it's almost like their friendship, this unconventional friendship, it becomes a lifeline for them both, which I think is so interesting.
Yeah, it really underscores this truth about, well, about all of us, really, that even people who seem totally self-sufficient, even those who wield this, immense power, they still crave those moments of connection, those moments of genuine connection, that feeling of belonging we all search for.
It makes you realize we're not that different, are we?
Not at all. And that need for connection, it's not limited to, gods and immortals. You see it reflected in every human story in The Sandman, too, including Rosewalkers.
Right, Rose. Now, her quest is, well, it's all about finding her family. And it highlights that need, very primal need to belong, to find our place in the world. Something, I think we can all relate to, whether it's through our blood relatives or, sometimes it's those friends who become like family.
Absolutely. Rose's story really highlights that. How family, no matter how we define it, it gives us this sense of grounding, a sense of purpose, a sense of love even. And through her journey, through all the ups and downs, The Sandman, it explores just how crucial those connections are to, well, to our sense of self, to who we are.
It's true. Now, as we go deeper into The Sandman, we encounter this, well, you could say a family unlike any other. We've talked about Dream, but he's actually just one of 7 siblings. And they're called the Endless.
The Endless.
And each one represents a fundamental force of existence.
Yeah.
There's destiny and death and destruction and desire, despair. There's even delirium. Imagine trying to get that group together for a family dinner, right?
Right.
But it's so interesting because even with these cosmic roles, this, immense power, right? They still have these complicated family dynamics.
Yeah.
Just like the ones we see in our own lives.
Exactly. They squabble, they hold grudges. They even have these moments of, well, genuine affection too. And through it all, through all their interactions, the Sandman highlights how even for these beings who have existed since forever, since the dawn of time, family still matters.
And it's amazing because, we've got death I mean, her name alone, but
Yeah.
she's actually one of the most relatable, I mean, dare I say, even comforting characters. Like, she's the wise older sister, the one who just understands how fragile life is and how important connection really is.
Yeah, I think Death's ability to connect with both mortals and, her siblings too, it comes from her compassion, her willingness to, well, to just meet people where they are, and it's a powerful reminder that even when we're faced with, well, our greatest fear, connection is still possible.
Absolutely. And speaking of connecting, another thing that struck me about The Sandman is how it explores stories themselves as these bridges between minds.
Yeah.
Like stories can actually bring people together and even combat loneliness.
It's true.
And that's where we see Morpheus, the master of dreams. You know, he actually collaborates with William Shakespeare, maybe the most celebrated storyteller of all time.
Right?
And their partnership, I mean, it's a testament to how powerful storytelling can be,
Yeah.
how it transcends time, how it connects with people, with
Yeah.
audiences on such a deep level. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
It's fascinating, though, isn't it? I mean, how a story from the 1600s can still resonate with us so much, even today. It really shows you, like, how powerful art is, like art in any form, right? How it creates these shared experiences that make us feel, I don't know, a little less alone in the world.
Yeah, definitely. But, while The Sandman definitely celebrates the beauty of connection, I mean, the good stuff, it also doesn't shy away from showing us the risks involved, right?
Because, well, just as Shakespeare explored both the light and dark sides of, well, human nature, I guess.
Yeah.
The Sandman does the same. Like, it reminds us that connection, it's not always, I don't know, easy or comfortable, right?
Yeah, definitely not.
Like, it requires us to be vulnerable, to open ourselves up to, well, the possibility of being hurt, I guess, which is scary.
It is. It is.
And as we've seen with Morpheus, I mean, even with his godlike power, he still struggles with that vulnerability. Like, he's been betrayed, manipulated, even imprisoned because of his connections, which makes you think, doesn't it, about that whole balance between, opening yourself up to other people and protecting your own heart.
Yeah, and I think that's a dilemma we all face, right? We crave that intimacy, that feeling of belonging, but we fear the pain that can come with it. And The Sandman doesn't, it doesn't sugarcoat it. Like, it shows us that even the strongest connections, they can be tested. And sometimes those tests, well, they reveal vulnerabilities we didn't even know we had.
It's so true. It's like that saying, right? You have to risk getting hurt to experience true love. But it's true, though, isn't it? But
Yeah.
that risk can be terrifying, especially, I think, if you've been hurt before.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where I think the idea of discernment comes in. The Sandman, it encourages us to be mindful of the connections we choose, the relationships we form, and to be able to tell the difference between those relationships that are good for us, the ones that build us up, and those that tear us down.
Right. And I think that's where desire comes in,
Oh, yeah, desire.
Another one of the endless, and they embody that, well, that darker side of connection. Like, desire is all about manipulating emotions, playing on people's vulnerabilities to get what they want. And it just goes to show you that, well, not everyone who's looking for connection has good intentions, right?
It's true. And I think desire serves as this, well, like a cautionary tale, really, showing us how that need we have, that need for love and belonging, how it can be exploited. And it's not just in, fantasy worlds like The Sandman, you know what I mean?
Right.
This type of manipulation. I mean, we see it in real life all the time. In those unhealthy friendships, those toxic relationships, even in the ways we consume media, it's everywhere.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like those friends who, they only call when they need something, or those social media feeds that make us feel, I don't know, like we're not enough somehow.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so easy, isn't it, to fall into those traps, especially when you're feeling lonely or insecure.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is why I think it's so important to be aware of our own, vulnerabilities and to set those boundaries, right?
Boundaries. Yeah, those are important.
They are, because true connection, real connection, it shouldn't come at the expense of our well-being, or at the expense of our sense of self. It's about, finding that balance, the balance between being open to other people and protecting your own heart at the same time.
It's tough, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I think about it as like building a bridge,
Yeah.
You need a strong foundation.
I secured
Sure, support's right.
Right.
If you want to create something that can handle the weight of both the good and the bad, the joy and the sorrow, all of it.
It is. And sometimes, you have to be willing to dismantle a bridge that's no longer safe, even if it means, saying goodbye to someone you once cared for.
That's a good way to put it. Dismantling a bridge. It really highlights how connection, it's not just about holding on to relationships no matter what, right?
Yeah.
It's about recognizing when a connection has run its course,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
when it's time to move on, even if it's painful.
It is, and it can be painful, that's for sure. But it's
Yeah.
a reminder that, well, growth often involves loss, And sometimes I think the most courageous thing you can do is walk away from a connection that's no longer good for you, even if it means facing a period of, being alone for a while.
Yeah, that's true. But even in those moments of loneliness,
Mm.
the Sandman suggests that, well, we're never truly alone. I remember that whole concept of the dreaming, that realm where, all our minds connect through dreams. It's like, it's this beautiful metaphor for the collective unconscious, that invisible thread that, I don't know, somehow connects us all.
Yeah, I love that. The dreaming. It's a powerful symbol of our shared humanity. You
Mhm.
know, it suggests that even when we're at our lowest, when we feel the most isolated, there's still a part of us that's connected to something bigger, something beyond ourselves.
It's like those moments, when you realize you're not the only one who's ever felt a certain way or gone through a certain kind of pain.
Hmm.
And there's comfort in that, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
Knowing that our struggles, our joys, our fears, all of it, it's all part of being human, part of this shared experience.
It is. And that shared experience, I think, even in its darkest moments, it can be a source of hope, a source of resilience. It reminds us that we're part of something bigger than ourselves, and that even when we feel lost, we're not truly alone.
It's so true. So as we continue our deep dive into the Sandman, we'll keep exploring these themes, loneliness and connection. We'll see how characters deal with heartbreak and betrayal, but also how they find solace and meaning and even redemption, through those connections they form. Wow, we've really gone deep into the world of the Sandman, haven't we? Exploring all these like paths of loneliness and connection. And it's amazing how it plays out in the lives of, everyone, the humans, the cosmic beings, everyone.
Yeah, it's really something. And now that we're, at the end of our deep dive, I think it's a good time to come back to that big question, right? Like, what's the takeaway here? What does the Sandman really teach us about this human need for connection?
It's a big question, and it's definitely been there in the background throughout every story we've talked about.
Yeah.
Every character, every encounter. And for me, one of the biggest takeaways is that, well, connection. It's not just some like feel-good concept, you know what I mean? It's a real need, a fundamental human need, I think. And it shapes our lives in ways we don't even realize.
I agree. And the Sandman doesn't try to pretend it's all sunshine and roses. It shows us both the beauty and the challenges, all of it. Like, we've seen how being vulnerable can lead to being hurt. We've seen how trust can be broken. And even with those powerful beings, those endless loss can bring even them to their knees.
It's true. It's heavy stuff. But even with all the darkness, there's this, I don't know, this glimmer of hope, right? Just a reminder that even in a world where, where dreams and nightmares literally collide, it's connection that gives our lives meaning. It's connection that gives our lives purpose.
Yeah, I think that's at the heart of it all. Think about Hobgadling again. He chooses to live for centuries, and that means seeing it all, the good, the bad, the joy, the heartbreak. But what keeps him going through it all? What makes all that loss bearable? It's those connections, those moments of friendship, of love that make it all worthwhile. They light up even the darkest times.
It's amazing. And even Morpheus. The King of Dreams, he starts off as this distant figure, almost godlike, really. But through all those interactions, all his experiences, the love and the loss, he changes. He becomes more compassionate, more understanding.
Yeah, and that transformation is a big lesson for all of us, isn't it? It reminds us that we're not, like, fixed. We're always changing, growing, and it's our experiences, our connections with other people. That's what shapes us. And those connections, even the painful ones, they teach us things. They humble us. They help us become more, well, more ourselves, really, more who we're meant to be.
It's true. It's like when you look back at a relationship that, maybe didn't work out, and you realize even though it ended, it taught you something about yourself,
Yeah.
about what you need, about the kind of love you deserve. And those lessons, even if they were tough, they help us grow.
Absolutely. And the Sandman pushes us to embrace that growth, to see all the ups and downs of connection, not as, roadblocks, but as chances to learn and to change and to become better.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Sandman, I want to leave you with something to think about. As you navigate your own life, your own relationships, as you search for that connection. Remember the lessons we've uncovered in these stories.
Yeah. Remember that connection. It's a journey. It's not some destination you arrive at. It's about, allowing yourself to be vulnerable. It's about setting healthy boundaries. It's about understanding that growth. It often comes with some discomfort, and maybe most importantly, it's about cherishing those connections, the ones that bring you joy, that bring light into your life, even when things are tough.
Yeah, because in the end, I think the Sandman shows us that we're not supposed to do this alone.
Hmm.
You know, we're all connected through our dreams, through stories, through the fact that we all want the same things. Love, belonging, understanding. We all want that.
That's what makes us human. And may those connections, however long they last, may they guide you and challenge you and lead you to a deeper understanding of yourself and the world